Let's just say we're off to a good start. I like the way it started. The sound of an ancient typewriter sang out staccato in the silence of the room as a cloud of blue smoke hung over the corner where Bill Thickpen was working. I like that intro. But I will say, a cloud of blue smoke, he is not a miner, neither is he an engineer. He does have ashtrays. As a non-connoisseur of smoking, is there anything that gives off blue smoke? I type in this description into to get something. Basically, he seems like a super workaholic-ish type figure, but his graying brown hair looked as though he had slept and woke up several times and never remembered to comb it. The face was clean-shaven and kind, lines strong, yet something about him very gentle. He was not a man clearly defined by handsome, yet he seemed strong, appealing, worth more than a second glance. A man one would like to spend time with. But not now, not as he groaned, glanced at the clock again, and let his fingers fly at the typewriter still harder. Then finally, Bill Thickpen, William Thickpen, which?
Bill is described as teddy bear, very tall, not someone who's necessarily handsome, but good looking. So, yeah. Anyways, let's keep going.
He's a writer for a show called A Life Worth Living. It's like a soap opera. If you're like me, who like watches like telenovelas, that type of thing, that type of thing. Those like dramatic stories are like this person is the mother of this person and this person died and the twin died. Crazy, crazy stories that they come up with. His daytime show is so successful. It's won Emmys. After he won the first Emmy, he got a divorce. We were getting there. Basically, he used to be a, how do I put it, purist theater dramatist. He used to like work on Broadway shows, and he was like, oh, imagine how ironic it would be working on a soap opera and making it out. He married his wife Leslie, who was a dancer in Broadway, and they were broke. They were broke in Soho, New York. And so he's like, oh my God, how ironic would it be? And ironically, he made it out of poverty with a soap opera. They have a child called Adam and a baby called Tommy. Over time, he ended up falling in love with writing for A Life Worth Living. Like, he knows what works. Everyone loves what he does. He makes numbers and money for the network. And he just knows what works, basically. He's an incredible showrunner. I think that's what they call that, right? He's always like lurking when, they're like acting it. And from what it seems like, it's a live thing. There's no editing. I don't know how that works. But granted, this book seems like it was written like very like old times. So finally, him and Leslie got a divorce because he's such a workaholic. Leslie feels he never has time for them. Anytime he even comes home, he's always talking about, oh, will Martha die? And will Larry? He's always on and on and on and on about his show. And she's sick of it. He never goes out with them, never has time to do anything. He never is at home. She almost never sees her husband. He's always doing his show. And anytime he comes home, he's always harassing her with his show, according to her. She feels very distant from him. And so she's like, I'm done. I want a divorce. This was when, like I said, they just won their first Emmy, and the network people in charge were like they should move the show to California. And he's like, oh my God, we're going to California. We're going to get a condo. We're going to blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I am not moving with you. I'm sorry. It's kind of heavily emphasized how into his show he is, like to the point where in the middle of a conversation about a divorce, my man is talking about, will Bill leave Leslie? Can Bill really change? It's like, sir, get serious. Bill later on found out that there was this guy that she's been getting really close to, and that's probably why she got a divorce from him. She was falling in love with him, and she didn't want to. Why did she get to keep them and not he? Why does he have to pay a high price for a mistaken marriage? Sir, you're hardly ever around. What? So when he moved to California, delved right into his work and got into this situationship with this lady director. Like she moved into his house. Like a life is lower than you. You should do better serious film. She put away his children's pictures, which is severe, but he kind of tolerated her because she was experienced. Um, and she treated him like her child. He had enough of it. So she told him to forget his children. Okay, she told him to forget his children. He rented this bungalow, moved her things in there. He cut off all contact with her, basically. And they didn't meet for like a nice 4 years until like they're at an award show. And she was like, "Mm."
I don't know who this man is.
Later on, he seemed to get involved with this chick called Sylvia, who was so hot, impeccably hot. She got the ratings up. She was one of the actresses on A Life. The way he talks about her, she's in her 20s. He's been working in the industry for ages, since she was a kid. She was a model, kid model, what do you call them? And then she became an actress. But apparently to him, she's very immature, childish. He finds it a nice trait at times, while sometimes he finds it to be very annoying. So we just finished an episode, and there's this lady called Betsy, who I think is kind of like a mother figure to Bellwell. She wants to prepare like sandwiches and coffee and stuff for him. And then she left. And Sylvia walks in and he's like, oh my God. Because I talk about how Sylvia is like this hot, hot babe. She's so hot that they use this phrase that I love. They say she's sensational looking. I'm stealing that. She's sensational looking. Is worth my steal. Anyways, Sylvia is sensational looking. Sylvia is beautiful. Sylvia is immature. Sylvia is hot. Yeah. Um, they describe her to be like thin, shapely, has long, long hair. I do not know why this thing did not realize that she had long hair. I said it so many times, and it still gave me whatever, you know. She has a very sultry but innocent face at the same time. She also has a great bosom. Silicone bosom big regardless. She just finished like on set and she went straight to Bill Will's office. And she's like, oh, there's something going on in Vegas. He's like, oh no, you go. She's like, okay, I guess. And after like a late night, he was like, he wants to go home. On his way home, he decided to go shopping for groceries, and he parked next to an old red MG. I think you should keep that for later. And he was, going from aisle to aisle. He would look at some, you know how you do when you go shopping? You're like, in one aisle and then you remember something, you finish with the island, and you see something on that island, it reminds you of something, and you go and you smell something, you're like, that smells good, and then you go over there, and yeah, that's how everything was happening. And then he was at the, I think, toiletries aisle, if I'm not mistaken, and there was this lady that bumped into him. Poof, you know how, the classic bumps? Like poof, and everything just fell flying because that's how all bumps work. He fell flying and fell after flying, and he's like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." So gentlemanly and so gentlemanly. And he picked up everything. He helped her pick stuff up, paper towels everywhere. And he's like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." And he gave her, and she's singularly the most wholesomely beautiful, cleanly beautiful, clean. I don't know what that means. Is probably it means that she is not wearing a lot of makeup. Maybe she is not like overtly dressed. I think she would probably be the type that One Direction would sing "What Makes You Beautiful" to. You know, she doesn't know she's beautiful, and that's what makes her beautiful. That he began to imagine a future with her immediately. She had this very like soft smile, and she glanced as she was walking away. And he's like, "Oh, he was trying to talk to each other." She glanced over her shoulder. Ooh, she glanced over her shoulder. I love when people do that in movies. Like, oh my god, I'm so hot. I can glance over my shoulder. At the counter, as she was trying to pay for her stuff, he realized her wedding band. I like that word, wedding band. He realized she had a wedding band on, and he's like, I can't even chase her. I can't even pursue her. When he went out to his Chevrolet car, he didn't see the old red MG. Adrian.